What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Big Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is, he said, fishing for his telephone, Thursday, September 29th, if you're listening to the podcast in audio form. It is Wednesday, September 28th, if you're watching on YouTube, live on YouTube. And Wednesday, you know what that means? It's a Brady Quinn football show. Pew, 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 pew.
Will, I got to tell you, it's good to be back on with you. Lots transpired in the past week. But as we were talking before today's show, I thought you were coming from a golf course because it looked like you were in golf attire. You kind of had that chummy, very like highbrow look to yourself. It looked like you were enjoying yourself. Where are you coming from?
I was, Brady, coming from a golf course. You and Pete Prisco FaceTimed me. And I think it was maybe bad service, so you guys couldn't like hear me or see me moving. Because like all I could hear was, look at his chest hair. Look at the hair coming out of that shirt. Was he wearing?
There's a lot of hair. That beard that you have basically extends down to your chest.
I don't, this is not, I guess, a braggable thing. But in theory, I could connect, I believe, my head hair to my the hair on my toes. I think I could be entirely, completely covered in fur. That's definitely
not something you brag about.
Right.
That is something to talk about, and it's an interesting point. I
would also say this. Have you ever grown a beard?
Like a sheep beard? No, I cannot.
Okay. I mean, and I wasn't, it's no judgment, obviously. I mean, like, I
don't know why my dad's never really been able to grow a beard. I couldn't really grow a beard. I tried to grow a mustache for No Shave November.
Yeah.
And it came out looking like Orlando Bloom, like his kind of like ratty mustache looking facial hair.
Well, see, your thing is, and like my buddy Jeff that I was riding with, he said, like, he even remarked, what a well put together guy Brady Quinn is. Like, you just see but you always look like you're like you never look disheveled.
Professional.
Yeah,
professional. I mean, that's
right. As opposed to
disheveled, like
disheveled. No, but I mean, like, you always, but so like, that's why I asked about the beard, because like, you're never like a 5 o'clock shadow guy. You're a clean shaven guy.
Nope. Got to be clean shaved. My marching orders came from one Kieran Portley, and he said, look, when you go on camera, you make sure you shave. You look like a clean cut kid. I said, okay. So ever since then,
really
I was hired by CBS. I've always tried to follow Port's guidelines. So shout out to him.
But like, you weren't like a 5 o'clock shadow, like unshaven guy in the NFL either.
No, but my dad was a military guy too. So it was like, hey, make your bed. Like, everything's got to be in line.
And you did, you were a professional athlete. That tends to be a little disciplined. And of course, the rigid Catholicism of Notre Dame.
Catholicism as well, right? Getting struck with a ruler back in my younger days going to Catholic school.
Can't do that anymore, buddy.
Yeah. Well, I didn't go to Catholic school when I was young either. So that's
you know who does go to Catholic school?
Your kids?
Robbie Brinson.
That's what I think.
Little Catholic punk.
Yeah. Well,
we've been debating the merits of conversion, but I think the problem is when you're an actual Catholic, any discount you get, I think it's pretty substantial, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes, you do get a nice discount for education. That is true. That is true. It's one of the perks.
I guess
sometimes you get an extra host in the offering plate.
As I understand it, if you're getting the Catholic discount, you are approached sometimes and asked to maybe take that discount and give it back to the church.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know that anyone approaches you about that discount. Usually they just ask you to donate to other things, other causes, right? That's
right. Right. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, seems like a lot of work.
Speaking of something that's nothing to do with this, which I'd love to just river dance right out of this.
He says, hey, let's do it. Let's get out of Catholic.
Let's talk about a couple of things that happened this past weekend.
Oh, you want to talk about football?
Yeah. Oh, at some point, yeah. So Jimmy Garoppolo is stepping out of the back of the end zone on Sunday Night Football. There's a thought that Dan Orlovsky gets off the hook.
Negative.
For him running out of the back of the end zone. I'm with you on that. I think that is one of the most biggest misconceptions of week 3 in the NFL, was that anyone's going to be let off the hook for that. I mean, his heel barely touched out, let alone a quarterback who ran almost half the length of the field out of bounds, and not just out of bounds, 3 yards out of bounds,
Preach, brother,
almost
Quinn,
past the white. and actually got to a point where it was like, how could you not know you're out of bounds at that point to take a safety? And then the other one was Mark Sanchez, who felt like the punter for the Dolphins was impeding on his space because he did try to launch a football up his personal protector's backside, his behind.
His tuchus, as Al Michaels likes to say.
Right. Also, not that
behind. You know somebody's a dad when they say behind.
Behind, the buttocks, whatever you want to say, a bottom, right? I had on radio today, someone said they're nice toilet. They phrased it that way.
Have you said I got to go tinkle in front of like someone who doesn't have kids because they look at you like you're a loser?
Dudes don't tinkle. Even my daughters like, Daddy, I have to go to the bathroom. We would never say tinkle. We say number one or number two. Yeah. But the whole point is
drop bombs.
We got through a weekend of football. Yeah. And by the way, he like belly back. And look at Jared Allen laughing. He's not screaming or yelling. He's laughing because of how far Dan Orlovsky goes out of bounds. And he still thinks he's like in play right there.
Exactly. That's the key point. So look, this official who is 2 feet, and if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6, you can see it. This official, is that Ed Hockley? Might be.
Arms don't look big enough, but yeah.
He has got the safety signal raised. There are in the stands, at least by my quick count, about 30 to 40, maybe 50 people pointing and laughing because Dan Orlovsky has been running on the white line for so long. Jared Allen is already celebrating, as you note, 69, nice. And like Jimmy Garoppolo was just 2 steps. Like he actually, I feel like that happens.
It was his heel.
Yeah. No, he got 2 feet out. I mean, but still.
Yeah. But anyway, the whole point is this. It doesn't negate from Orlovsky or Sanchez and the history that they've created in the NFL for the safety in that case, or the infamous butt fumble for Sanchez. So we have to talk about that first. The second thing is, I got the chance to call a game this weekend.
You were fantastic.
I appreciate that. I didn't feel fantastic, but something fantastic happened in the game, Will.
I texted you about it.
You did. And that's why I wanted to talk with you about this. So Jamaal Williams scores a touchdown, right? Nice stiff arm at the very end of the play to get in the end zone. And he proceeds to celebrate in a manner in which he ends up getting an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty for one too many pumps, one too many hip thrusts, however you want to describe it. I was losing it because in real time, I thought to myself, it has to be a hold there, or maybe it's a face mask on Jamaal Williams, the way he kind of stiff armed the defender. But then come to look at it, I'm like, oh no, they're actually gonna throw a flag on that, which there were so many questions that jumped to my mind. And the one prevailing thought was, don't say anything that will get you fired, or so you can never call an NFL game before.
I was watching that game when it happened, and I was thrilled that you were. I guess you're the color guy, right? Like you're the you're not doing play-by-play, right? And I was like, oh my god, yes, because I know what you would say on this podcast. And I know what you would say on HQ, and they're two drastically different things. So I was like, what is Brady going to say on the NFL on Fox right now? Because I know what's going on in his head. And like you're saying, like you're just thinking like, oh my God, you have to say something about this, but you just cannot get fired.
So I wish I would have came with something a little bit stronger than what I probably said in real time, but it was in part because I was hitting up our producer in Talkback, and I was like, bring on Mike Pereira. I want Mike Pereira to have to come on and talk about this in depth.
One too many.
I want to go back and do the replay. I want to show different angles, because the other thing that we kind of missed out on was Dan Skipper, who got a second start of his career, which tremendous story. If you haven't read into that, check that out. He played left guard for the Lions this past week. He comes over, and in unison, like choreographed, as Jamaal Williams is thrusting the air, you see Dan Skipper kind of like zapping his hips, like almost pointing at his hips.
I think I missed that.
And so, exactly, most people didn't see that. You had to see like a different angle of it. And so now I'm like, I want Pereira to break this down. Like, was it just Jamaal Williams because it was one too many pumps? Because it wasn't so much back and forth. It was like a circular motion. So maybe that's considered more of a dance move. But did the Dan Skipper like lightning rod to his pelvis, did that like happen to draw any additional attention to draw the flag? So I was really hoping to get Mike Pereira in such a professional setting, having to break down what seemed to be this sexual act that made its way onto a Fox broadcast in an NFL game. And unfortunately, my producer would not let it happen.
Stu Brumhill in the chat notes, Brady, you were so good with the pump analysis. 3 hand clapping emojis. I concur. That's actually why I wasn't texting you to be like, oh my God, hey Brady, like what's going on? Like, are you calling, you're calling an NFL game. I was actually like, I was like, you've seen the Key and Peele thing, right?
Of course.
Yeah,
and that's why. So I made reference to it after the fact when we came back, but in real time.
Probably said my good friend Will Brinson texted me. No, that's right. You did not say that. You did not.
I didn't say that, but I wanted to. And you can see the image there. That's full extension. That's most likely, let's just put it this way, the climax of Jamaal Williams' hip thrust. Like, let's just put it that way. Like, that's probably the end.
That was his finishing move,
of the excitement, the finishing move.
Yes. Now, I believe, by the way, because he scored twice in this game.
He did.
I believe on the first touchdown, he went hands behind head, 2
Correct.
quick grinds, and then bounced. And so
then the next one, it was when he was out in the open kind of by himself because of the run.
Yeah.
And that's where he really got a lot of the attention. And that's where you started to see the hips, the whole body was into it. And look, in his defense, I mean, Von Miller used to get away with the same exact celebration. Maybe
in the middle of the field.
In the middle of the field, like run a 50, like you can't miss him, right? Like we're in high school, the kids would like go and hook up on the 50-yard. Like that's where Von Miller used to do the celebration, and he never got in trouble for it.
Yeah.
So my whole point is like I was shocked, in part because obviously it impacted the ensuing kickoff, but just the fact that they called it, I was like, really? I mean, anyway, I think we had to miss.
Let me ask you this.
Mike Pereira in a 3-piece suit breaking down that to me would be the best television. Yeah.
I don't want to knock your producer at the NFL on Fox. I'm sure fantastic person and great job producing, but they should have brought Mike Pereira on. The other thing I am kind of curious about, and I do agree that like the 2-person factor probably contributed to it a little bit, but I sort of wonder if Jamaal Williams did the first move after the touchdown and the officials were like, all right, we don't want to call this. They're going to get killed.
Don't do that again.
But did they say something, or did maybe somebody from the league be like, hey, Humpy McHumperson over there can't dance like that in the end zone?
There's kids watching. Like
this children,
is, not safe for work. Like, come on, we can't have this. Okay. Yeah. And you can't have all that sex just in one, one spot there in the end zone.
Singular act of sexual.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably gonna have an OnlyFans page after this. Like that's devoted to Jamaal Williams. Just
like at Jamaal Williams on like Twitter or something. Yeah.
It's like during the weekday. Like you need to pick me up. Just go look at Jamaal Williams hip thrust. Yeah.
Look, I think you deserve an A+ for your in-game coverage of it because it is a delicate topic.
Yeah.
Like I would have said something stupid. I feel very confident about that.
My play-by-play had kind of said something like, oh, that used to be you back at Notre Dame or in college or whatever. And I almost was going to say like, oh yeah, on the reg. But then I was like, no.
If you
don't say
on
that.
the
Do not say that.
Yeah, buddy, all the time.
All the time. No. So I was just glad that I got through the game.
Who was the play-by-play in that game?
Brandon Godden. He does a great job. True pro. Him and Megan O'Leary, who was our sideline reporter, like ton of fun to work with. We didn't get to spend much time doing it because of our other commitments. We were both working in college before we got to Minneapolis to call the game, but pretty sweet. And by the way, sweet stadium. Like I said this during the game, and I don't know if it actually had any impact on the kicks.
It's an incredible stadium.
It's an incredible stadium, but it was weird how Greg Joseph on 2 of his kicks and Austin Seibert on 1 of his, especially that 4th down that everyone's giving Dan Campbell a hard time for not going for in Detroit. All of them started out on course, and then they just like faded or sliced to the right. And it made 0 sense watching it in real time because I was down on the field before, even though the doors were closed then. And they kind of said, like, I talked to some of the coaches in the field. They're like, yeah, when they open them up, you kind of feel a little bit of a draft or a breeze. It's nice. And so they ended up opening them up closer to kick. You couldn't see it on the uprights, the flag. So I assume it didn't play a factor. It's so odd that 2 kickers and 3 different kicks, the ball about halfway there just blew to the right.
Interesting.
Like it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. In that stadium.
Do you remember because I know that obviously depending on which way you're facing, the press box could be up to the right, and the press box is open air. So I sort of wonder if there might be, when you open the doors, is there maybe like if you
it's not open air. It's all like that. That's everything's enclosed. I mean, that's a legit dome with the exception of those doors.
No, I'm saying the press box, but I'm saying if you have a window on one end of your house.
Oh, right.
And they're facing, that creates the sort of the tunnel. Like, I wonder if it maybe
well, that's what I'm saying. So like if the uprights were here, right? Like here are the uprights, the doors are literally right there on that upper concourse.
Yeah, it's 100%.
Because it's the field's actually down. If you look where like ground level is, it's down. And then they open these big doors that swing and they create this like flow of air from up there. And that's the only thing that could have impacted those kicks almost the way it did, which look, at the end of the day, even if Detroit makes that kick, Cousins and the Vikings then win by 1. They still throw the touchdown pass. You know, the rest is history. Now, the difference is they probably would have had to go an extra 20, 30 yards based on the kickoff of, after you make the field goal. And so maybe that wouldn't have worked out the same way. But I still think it was the right decision for Dan Campbell to go, for the field goal in that instance, make it a 6-point game, and then force, the Minnesota Vikings to get along the hard way. You don't expect Cyber to miss 2 kicks in that game. You just don't.
And I believe that John Breach pointed this out on the recap podcast. I'm just going to double check here. I think on the possession before they attempted the field goal, Dan Campbell had gone for it on
4th down and didn't get it
on the Minnesota 30, and they got stuffed.
Yeah, which they had been great. They had been great throughout the day on 4th down. They were bad on 3rd down, and in fact, to a point, they converted all their 4th downs. They're like 3 for 3
of
converted at 3rd down.
3 of 16.
Yeah, on 3rd down. But then you look at the 4th down conversions. I think they're 3 or 4.
4 of 6.
4 or 6. So there you go.
More 4th down conversions than 3rd downs. That's pretty rare.
It's really rare. And I think it's one of the reasons why Dan Campbell got so much, flack or criticism for not going for it in that instance. But I believe it was 4th and 4, 4th and 5, which even people in the analytics community would tell you that's a little outside the range of probably where you want to go for it at that point. Because if you don't get that conversion, then you're looking like the guy that, gave Kirk Cousins in field position. And now they just have to go the short field to at least have a field goal, if not a touchdown, to win it. So a lot of people are doing what's called resulting. They're taking the end result and they're basically using that to justify it being a bad decision. That's not how coaching decisions are made.
It has to be process over result. You cannot be a result. Right. And even though Bill Parcells describes football as a results-based business, and he's not wrong,
right?
You cannot criticize or compliment somebody's process based on the result. It needs to be
right.
Did he have a sound process in how he approached this? Exactly. Minnesota got the ball at their own 44 after the missed field goal. And so, you basically saved 8 yards, maybe.
Right.
So I'm fine with that too. I was debating on whether we take a break. I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
And when we come back, Brady Quinn will tell me who's going to win the most important football game of the weekend and maybe the year, maybe of all time. Next.
Really? This sounds like a really big game, whatever this is.
So it is a huge game. It's a massive game. It has ramifications, implications that will resound across the world of football for years to come. Of course, I'm talking about Saturday night. NC State,
Clemson. That's right. That's right. I'll put it this way. It's in Clemson, South Carolina. As of right now, they're still planning on playing. I know there's supposed to be some impact from Hurricane Ian. So there's going to be some bad weather as it looks now.
Yes.
I don't know who that favors. I think both good defenses. I think I'd give the edge to Clemson running the football a little better with Will Shipley. The thing I'm concerned about for your Wolfpack is DJ Uiagalelei had to step up in that moment last week versus Wake, and he did. Countless pressure moments, and he made those plays through the air, which we hadn't seen this year, and then even running more than we'd seen. I think he added 50 yards on the ground. That, to me, was a statement game, I think, for him and maybe even for his time at Clemson, whereas he doesn't have to look over his shoulder at Cade Klubnik anymore, who is a talented recruit that they've got waiting in the wings. It's his team. It's his time now, and just go and play moving forward. So that's my concern for NC State is I don't know how difficult of a schedule they've played in comparison to Clemson, where they've been tested, and you get them now in their house, Death Valley, tough place to play, assuming it's your normal college football setup, and the hurricane obviously is dissipated by then.
Yeah, I think I would. I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think that if the hurricane weather is intense and there's a lot of wind and a lot of rain, if it is, then I think it favors NC State. Not on the field. I think Clemson is a better running team, but I believe that it will impact the number of people in the stands.
Ooh, there you go.
And it will make it more difficult to create noise, because I was at the the Notre Dame NC State game.
There's no one there. I mean, it was like a faucet, like a sieve, like it was just water falling down.
Nobody could hear anything.
Yeah,
but too busy watching was that?
That makes me think though. There's a chance they might move it, and just to be able to have that environment, because they know how big this game is. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want weather to do even that game. I was like, why are they playing this game right now? Back when they were playing Notre Dame and NC State,
yeah, it was almost like a novelty. It was like dumb. It's like, what are we doing out here?
Well, and like you can make the case this might be for playing for the ACC, right? Like this could change the outcome for both teams' chance to win the ACC. Right. And so do you really want to risk that in a bad weather game where like both teams are going to be impacted by it? So right. I hope that's not the case. I hope the weather's not impacted. I hope everyone's safe, by the way, first and foremost. I'm seeing some of my buddies live on the West Coast right now, seeing pictures of Naples. I mean, they're underwater. The storm surge and the flooding's been so bad. So,
and the other thing too is that the hurricane, isn't it wild that it just you're in Fort Lauderdale and the Miami area, and it's just y'all are.
There's been nothing.
Right.
There's been nothing. It's been a little rain, a little wind. It's far enough west where it's not going to hit us.
But the issue for the Clemson game too is that it may hit the West Coast, cross over, get back out into the Atlantic and the Gulf there, and
circle back around,
but when it hits water the second time,
it picks up.
Oh, cranks up.
It gets cranks up. It's
cranks up. Like Jamaal Williams,
it's like drinking a 12-pack of Toughies. Like it's coming at you with some red ass. You know what I'm saying? I mean that's called the old loop to you. You know, where it just loops right back around, slams right back into you.
Maybe that should be like the tagline for this podcast. Coming at you with some red ass.
Yeah, I don't understand why Elon Musk can't figure this out. I mean, come on, dude. Forget Mars for a second. Can't we prevent some hurricanes or other natural disasters first, before we want to go somewhere else? Let's not completely give up on this planet and some of the natural disasters. Let's try to save some things here. Then we can worry about colonizing Mars. That's just my feeling on it.
And I'm big on space. I think space is cool and awesome, but NASA's got a lot of money. Maybe we could direct that money to stuff on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it'd be great.
We could build a giant wall and keep out hurricanes. Who says no?
I'm not going down that road.
Perhaps
about Eddie building any wall.
I'm not
about a wall.
We're keeping out hurricanes in this
right.
Scenario.
Right. Well, there might be some other things you keep out too if you're building a wall to keep out hurricanes. I mean, I'm just saying.
Right. You're right. You can keep out tidal waves.
That's true.
Tsunamis.
It's not. You could killer whales.
Sharks.
I don't know.
Killer whales. Yeah,
Sharks.
exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Floods. Tons of stuff. Anywho, the other thing, and I thought this was a really good point made by my buddy Chris Andrews today. While we were discussing the game after our lovely round at Forest Creek, shout out Jeff Hayes for the hookup, is that Dabo Swinney came out in his press conference and mentioned very specifically, how much that zone defense they play, it's just so dangerous. You just don't know what they're going to do with that zone defense. And Chris points out, it's if Dabo is specifically praising the zone defense, he probably loves the idea of us playing off coverage and allowing DJ to hit underneath shots instead of pressing up on these receivers.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's just waiting for you guys to do that.
He's actively out there oh my God, that zone defense is sort of like Jesus. I mean, it's just, sometimes you just don't know what miracles he's going to bring to you today.
Wow. That you just said a lot in a little right there.
Well, that's what Dabo does.
Yeah, he does.
Remember when all his players before the bowl game tested positive for Ostarine or whatever it was, or some weird steroid that you could only get it illegally in China.
Yeah, but that was like Bob Baffert, right? Like some guy urinated in the stall where there was the hay and the horse ate the hay, and all of a sudden, it was one of those scenarios, right? That's how it happened.
No, Dabo even said he's who knows? You could get that from Diet Coke. Like you can just drink a Diet Coke and then like all of a sudden you got a positive steroid. Like, I mean, I don't know where it came from. It's like, I know where it came from.
Testing Nick Saban. Somebody needs to start testing Nick Saban. He could be ingesting this stuff right now. Doesn't he have a deal with Coke? Doesn't he always have like a Coke up there with him?
Yeah, and Geico.
And Geico, it's also. But I don't think Geico's going to give him, that. I think ingesting the Diet Coke.
Maybe they're giving him bird hormones, duck hormones.
That'd be interesting.
These truly are my favorite. These truly are my favorite podcast.
It's the Geico gecko. So it's actually a reptile.
No. There's a duck. Or is that
Aflac?
Oh, he's Aflac, not Geico. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Fortunately, we have neither of those as sponsors of this podcast, so I don't care.
No, by the way,
State Farm man right here, baby. What?
Yeah. I don't think we're getting that anytime soon.
No, I don't think so either. I'm a State Farm man myself.
Hey, can we do some read between the lines?
Oh, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Do you are you gonna
No, I've seen the list, although I don't want to think any about the top of my head. So
okay. Let me log back into my computer here, which has been closed. God, I mean, truly the best podcast. I'm so desperately hoping that the people who are coming to fix your flat tire call you while we're on this podcast.
They're texting me right now, which for
really?
all the listeners out there. I was driving to work today and of course got a flat tire because, with a hurricane and all this other bad weather stuff going on, and my kid's not even having school, which I don't even want to get into that because it really just feels like an average Wednesday here in South Florida during hurricane season. But now I've got a flat tire and I'm trying to diagnose the issue. And yes, I would change it myself if I had a spare. I don't have a spare. So now I've got to figure out how to get the car towed to a place where I can change it.
Would you change it if you had a spare?
Yeah, I would.
You would? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look at you.
Chopper taught me how to change a spare. I've only had to do it once. In fact, I had to do it once one time. I don't even know if I should tell this story. I want to say I was a freshman in high school.
Oh boy.
And I was out in Arizona during like a long weekend. My sister had like a softball tournament or something. And one of our family friends had gone out there and he was going to school at Arizona State. And so he was like taking me out to like house parties or whatever. But when we were driving to go to those house parties, he got a flat. And so he popped out and he's like, "Oh, dude, I don't know how to change a flat." I was like, "I know how to." I was like, "Where's your spare?" And so I literally just started kind of rummaging through his trunk, jacked up the car, took the thing off, pulled off the old one and put the other one on, like did it all that. And I was like a freshman in high school at that point. But which is weird because I wasn't driving yet, but my dad had always kind of taught me, Chopper Quinn, always taught me those lessons like early on. So meanwhile, while they were unable to physically process and how to do all of that, like it worked out. But that's the only time I've ever like been in this scenario where I've had a spare and I've actually gotten a flat tire. But
I bet Chopper Quinn has never missed an oil change. Maybe once for
probably not.
Yeah, for some Catholic holiday.
But he's like the guy. He's like Kramer, where they take the car on empty, like way past the limits.
Oh, I love it.
They want to see how far like they can push that vehicle on empty. There's been countless times where I've watched him do that. And I to this day, I'm always like, if you're on empty, you got a good 30, 40 miles. Like, I don't care what they say. Those tanks are made to be able to literally make it 30, 40 miles.
100%. They know that 50% of America is like, I don't really feel like pulling over right now. Now, like my mom and my dad and Bob will not operate on less than a quarter of a tank. And that's their prerogative. I, as you might guess, am not really afraid of running down to the end of the tank.
Yeah.
The last time I changed,
live on the edge.
Yeah, I'm such an edgy guy. The last time I changed a flat tire, actually, we were hiking up in Boone, I think, for the weekend, and we went hiking.
Boone, North Carolina.
Boone, North Carolina, man, home of App State.
Is that where App State is? Is that where App State is?
That sure is, buddy.
That right? Yep.
So we were hiking, and actually, my pal Hogan, who listens to this podcast, shout out Will Hogan.
Let's just call him Butch. Can we call Hogan?
Hogan
Sounds like a better Southern name.
So
it's Hogan.
Yeah,
it's not Butch.
We were hiking, and we get this like little waterfall like spot, and like where people pull up, and we get down there. There's a bachelorette party there, and Hogan's like, "Ooh," he's like, "How did we forget to put beer in our like bag as we're hiking?" He's like, "I got some beer. I'm gonna go ask him." He's like, go to the day. Hey, what's up?
That's great. Hey, I'm a dude. I don't have any beer. Can I have some of yours? Yeah,
right. Yeah, right. But he starts walking over there and just slips on this like little rock and just goes square up and lands on his back. And they're like, "No, you can't have our beer." So like insult to injury. but we're coming out of the hike, and there's this like rainstorm coming down like crazy. And so we're like trying to get out to the parking lot as fast as we can. And we get out there. The bachelorette party is still there. They have a flat tire.
Oh,
guess who changed it?
Old Willie Brinson.
LAB. Get down in, right. It was actually kind of dicey because it was like very muddy, and they like it could have been. It was a very impressive effort.
It's a great story.
Thanks.
That's a great story. Yeah.
There's some more to it, but it's not really.
Yeah, probably not the right time for it.
Right, exactly. So read between the lines. Dennis Allen, Saints coach, told reporters after practice about Jameis Winston. Really, it's just more trying to rest and trying to make sure it's healthy. Read between the lines.
It's clearly bothering his play, although I don't know. I think when I go back and look at what he's trying to state is it's probably a chance Andy Dalton starts. And maybe we want Andy Dalton to start because Jameis Winston looks like the Jameis Winston that was playing with the Bucs.
Ooh.
We see the upside and ability, but we see the turnovers way too much. So maybe we'll give old Andy Dalton a chance. We feel like our defense is good enough to keep us in games and to win us games if we're not having to face extra possessions because our quarterback's turning it over.
And it does feel like if the Saints go out and beat, they're playing the Vikings in London, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. 9:30 a.m. Eastern kick.
They're getting 2.5 points. The Vikings are actually favored in this case.
And no, obviously no home field specifically.
Yeah. Although you'd think that given the Scandinavian nature of Vikings, that maybe they'd have a greater fan base over there because there's more people who maybe come down from Scandinavia and say Skol Vikings and do the clap and all that.
Aren't there a lot of Saints over there too, though?
That also is true. That would kind of buck that. But are the Saints busy on Sundays?
Very good point.
Yeah.
I don't think Vikings actually recognize Sunday. This is a good question, actually. I don't know. I'm just making, I don't know. Yeah, smash the like button if you're watching. Shout out Jeremiah Murphy says Brady Quinn is Jeremiah Murphy, by the way. Brady Quinn is the most Irish name I've ever seen, and I'm Irish myself.
Nice. Yeah, I guess my name is more Irish than Jeremiah's.
Oh, you want to hear I think I can tell the story? Yeah. Whatever.
Does he know I'm from Dublin, Ohio? I mean, it's kind of weird too.
I bet I know higher. When I was in high school, I don't know about you. I mean, you're like so tall and like, athlete-y that maybe
where's this going?
Have I told you the story?
Oh, I hope not.
Okay, good.
Is this gonna be a good story?
Yeah. Like I don't know how you would, in high school, if you were looking to procure adult beverages before the legal age to consume them. I'm not sure how you were able to do so. Maybe you knew, what I mean? It's basically like, did you have somebody else's ID? Like yada, yada, yada. Like what was?
No, I didn't put myself in harm's way like that. If someone was doing that, they were getting it. I was the one buying that.
I guess that's true. If you're like the QB1, you're like, bro, just go get me beer, bring it back here.
Yeah.
And they're like, yes,
yeah,
sir.
That's what you do. Yeah.
So someone at I'm just gonna leave all the parties out of it, but made a ID for me.
You made your own. You made a homemade ID.
I did not make it. Somebody else made this.
Okay.
No. I'm not like trying to get myself out of trouble.
So you're like McLovin? You were like McLovin? Is that what it was?
Actually, worse. We go down to Savannah over spring break. I think it was my senior year in high school, maybe junior year. I can't remember. And it's St. Patrick's Day. They dye the river green. You have a couple entrances. You go in and you show your ID. You get a wristband. You can go to any bar you want. It's a fantastic time. Very Irish. I go and I'm like dumb enough where I haven't like really like analyzed like, the whole, like I should have like remembered all the information. I'm not really thinking about it. And I go and I hand the lady my ID and she looks at me. She goes, "Happy birthday." I was like, yeah, thank you. Whoever made this ID thought it would be hilarious to give me the name Randall Patrick McMurphy and make my birthday St. Patrick's Day.
It's pretty funny. I mean, it's pretty funny. Like
that's funny when you're like about to lose, like you've got to get arrested for, whatever. Anyway,
it's on you for not knowing that it was your birthday though on your fake ID.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Like,
that's
like a lesson. Like the one thing you're supposed to know is like all your information on your fake ID.
Good lesson learned.
Backstory. Yeah.
Good lesson learned. All right.
Typical Brinson. That's right.
Let's see. Oh, is this Myles Garrett car crash? Is like.
Wait. I hope he's okay. I know he's a little banged up. Might not play this week.
I can't see how he plays this week.
Odd thing is, like, he didn't strike me as a Porsche guy. That's kind of a small car for a big guy like that.
And it is a small car for a big guy like that.
Like, how the hell is he fitting in that thing?
I have no idea.
Like, I kind of picture him being more like SUV truck guy, like something bigger, high off the ground. You step up into, not
or even like a longer, like a Lambo
anything.
or a Ferrari is like more room. Porsches have no leg room.
Yeah, I just that was surprised. Like that was the most. It's like at this point, anything that happens in Cleveland, I'm not surprised by. Besides the car choice of Myles Garrett, did not think he was going to be in that small of a car. Like that's what threw me off. I was like, well, I mean, yeah, crazy stuff happens in Cleveland. Trust me, I was there for 3 years.
Yeah. Weird stuff. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you had a bunch of weird stuff happen while you were there.
Yeah.
What was the weirdest thing that ever happened to you in Cleveland?
That happened to me?
Yeah, or just like, yeah, like.
I mean, we had there was a lot of stuff around the whole staff thing, Like,
the staff. That's right. We talked about that at one point, like either last year or maybe 2 years ago.
Well, because we were like bathing with Hibiclens, which is like the soap they give you to wash with before surgery. It is not made for like everyday use. But guys were so scared to be to the facility. There was like literally big, gigantic bottles of Hibiclens in the showers. I'm like, everyone's like skin's all dry and ashy. And like there's like there's like gallons of like cocoa butter and shea butter everywhere because everyone's so dried out from it. Like, what is happening?
And wasn't that like near the end of your run in Cleveland, right?
I mean, it was 3 years. I don't know if there was a beginning or a really end.
I don't think that. I mean, however many long the list of quarterbacks is, like there are a lot of Browns quarterbacks that didn't work out. It would be, one would suggest, a Browns issue and not a quarterback issue, right?
I mean, we're still trying to figure that out. We hope Deshaun's the guy.
I feel like you are positive. Like I think of you, and maybe it's just because you're drafted by the Browns. Like I think of you in a positive light with the Browns, as positive a light as any. Like a Browns player from that run you thought of.
I think the most frustrating part about that, and even the memories, is like people don't understand, like that was my dream. Yeah. Like the craziest thing for me now, being like nearing 40, having kids and all that, and talking to our kids about like dreams and all that stuff, is like that's what I grew up envisioning. Playing in Notre Dame, playing in Cleveland. When that becomes your reality, it's kind of like crazy because you're trying to like, you kind of look at everyone else out there and you're like, yeah, what did you dream about as a kid? I was like, I wanted to play for the Notre Dame and then go play for the Cleveland Browns. Like it happened. And like the draft, obviously the way it went, it was like they came and got me. So I think the most heartbreaking thing about my time there was the fact that I got traded away. And I got traded away by a coach who didn't draft me. I knew when he came in, he wasn't a fan of me and obviously wasn't a fan of him either.
Was it Mangini?
Mangini, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, again, like that was kind of just part of the deal. But that was what hurt the most. It's like when I signed a contract with them, it was like, look, I'm here for 5 years. Hopefully I'm here for the rest of my career. But like, I wanted to see this thing through. And between injuries and then other issues we had, it was hard to take. And I think also getting drafted with Joe Thomas and being close to Joe is like, I felt like I wanted to be there with him. Like he was my guy. Like he was, one of my good friends. And it was just tough. Like it's tough, like saying goodbye to all those guys. Braylon Edwards, a guy I was really close to. Like I literally bought a house, probably a driver and a 3-iron away from where he lived. Even closer where my quarterback coach, Rip Shear, was. I loved Rip. Rob Chazinski, like, I had such close relationships. And when they blew that thing up after my second year and Mangini came in, everything kind of turned and changed. And that was unfortunately for me tough because I knew on his way in, like he didn't want me to be the guy. They were trying to trade me to the Broncos before that season. It didn't happen. It happened after the season. But that was the toughest part, I think, about that. But again, not to completely get off on a tangent, the most surprising thing, because again, even living up there, like having played there and lived there, I would have never had a Porsche because just the weather. Like there's only so many days you're gonna be able to drive that thing out there, given the weather in this time of year, and especially in football season.
What color was your Hummer that you bought as soon as you got drafted? Yellow.
I never bought one. I had a deal.
Oh, that's right.
They leased me, and I gave Chopper and Rob's, my mom and dad. They had one. Theirs was white, and I had a black one. And the cool thing was that was like one of the coolest. Like Chris Long ended up getting it the year after I was drafted. He ended up getting that sponsorship.
Yeah.
So I went. The bad thing was, I went in New York to help give Chris Long a.
You gave Chris Long a Hummer.
I was like presenting him the keys to it. I was just like, this sounds awful. Like, can we call it an H2? Can we say anything other than that? I remember joking with Chris at the time, being like, this is like the marketing for this. It's terrible. I'm like, it's going to sound awful. Like, we can't word it that way. And I knew Chris because my little sister.
And Chris, by the way, Chris, friend of the pod, has been on the pod. Great guy.
Great dude. He's the best.
So he has a much better podcast than we have here going. Like,
he went to UVA. Yep. My little sister played soccer at UVA. So I remember I flew in one time for my little sister's 21st birthday. And somehow I got drunker than she did that night for her 21st. Like, I was the drunkest person, just buying everyone shots, trying to make sure she had a good time. And I ended up seeing him late night. There's some sandwich spot there. Everyone goes
called the White Spot.
Yes.
Yes, it's the greatest. And they put the fried eggs on burgers.
Yes, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting some like late night food there. But I saw him at one of the bars we were at the end of the night, kind of closing up shop.
I know exactly what bar you're at too. It's the one with the upstairs thing. It's like right there in the corner. I'm sure it's right across from White Spot.
I'll be honest, I don't remember much from that night. I just remember like talking to Chris for a while and then eventually reconnecting for the H2 giveaway. That's how I describe it, the H2 giveaway at that point in New York. But the rest is history.
So you gave, I'm not going to get fired over this.
I gave my parents also a.
I bet you and Chopper have had a few laughs with Chuck.
Well, but here's the true story of that. So we'll just go right in the weeds with this. So obviously we had a spike in gas prices, right? Yeah. Around that like 08, like back during the housing market crash in 08.
Yeah.
So, housing market crashes, gas prices skyrocket. Guess what happens?
It was really expensive.
They stopped making H2s. They stopped making H2s, right? Yeah. They're not making Hummers anymore, right? Yeah. They limit them, I guess I should say, right?
It's hard to get a Hummer these days, right?
It was hard. There was a handle on being able to get a Hummer, all right? You had to go through a lot of tough things to get one. Anyway, so they the deal was over and they're like, yeah, we can't renew. Like, we literally need these back. Like, they went through like that sort of like GM was going through a really, really hard time at that point. So that deal ended. And so the Hummers were gone. So they dried up. They're no longer there.
Oh my God. By the way, I love that. I can't remember who it was. Somebody was like, I was like, yeah, I gotta do this podcast. This is like a while back. I was like, I gotta do this podcast with Brady Quinn. They're like, man, tough times for him, huh? He's gonna do a podcast.
Do a podcast with Will. Thank God they pay me so well here. Hopefully that continues. Doesn't dry up like Hummer did.
Well, I would hope. You would think that somebody at CBS would give you a Hummer. Just for usage to back and forth to the office, like for the mileage. Just,
I mean, are they back? I mean, they are back. They have an electric version.
They have electric Hummers now.
Oh yeah, they're coming out. Yeah, they're out there. Yeah, you gotta find them. All right, we got any more? I mean, they're gonna.
All right.
By the way, where's Billy? Where's Billy? This is the first time I think Billy's produced the pick six today. I'm sure he's really enjoying this podcast.
I bet Billy's like, okay, I didn't
get myself into.
So I think like Billy came on like did the Sunday show, and is like, all right, this is like, I can't believe I'm gonna be up listening to Brinson talk until 3 a.m. every Sunday for like the next like however long, like the Welcome to Hell on Earth, and it's like, oh, by the way, you don't know about Brady Quinn football shows yet because. Like, be prepared to hit the laser buttons. Be prepared to hit the dump button.
Do we have a dump button? Is that a thing?
We do not.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
I don't think technically. I don't know what the rule is for YouTube in terms of, because we're live on YouTube, obviously. Right. I don't know what technically CBS could get mad if we said something offensive or a bad word or something, right?
Right.
But I don't think YouTube cares. So ultimately, we could just like chop it out for the audio version, and maybe we'd kind of get away with it. I don't know. It's possible. This podcast
this right now. Hey, you want to talk some football X's and O's real quick? So actually, like we accomplished something instead of just talking about the old H2s.
Yes, I was going to ask you. I know there's like you sent me a voice text earlier, which is what you do.
Oh yeah.
I made when we did the fantasy football draft-a-thon thing, Matt Leinart popped on with us.
Yeah.
And I was like, Brady loves sending voice text. He was like, oh my God, thank you. Yes, it's so weird. Like, why does he do that? And
it's not weird. It's the future. Like, people who leave voicemails are like, yeah, get out of here. Like,
voicemail is trash.
Exactly. You might as well leave a voice text. No different than texting someone. It's more personal because you actually get to hear their voice, the tone of it, and it's quicker. Because sometimes you're driving or something, you don't want to text and drive. Voice text.
I like your voice text because there's usually this like kind of, you're like, so I'm like, I know you're gonna like sneak in some like Tuffy reference or something sarcastic, and I always laugh. Anyway, you pointed out, I think I was in a car, so it was like hard. It was like, is it Ed Donatel we were talking about? You're referencing?
Yeah. So calling the game last week. One of the cool things about calling a game is you really get to kind of dive in the weeds of what they're trying to do schematically on both sides.
This is the Vikings-Lions game for those.
Correct. Yeah, Minnesota Vikings taking on the Lions. So Ed Donatel is a longtime coach in the NFL. He's been doing it for almost like 30 years.
Yeah.
He obviously comes from, I guess you'd say, the Vic Fangio coaching tree, and he's implementing what's called a shell coverage. And you'll hear, like you kind of heard Troy Aikman and Joe Buck talk about on Monday Night Football when the Vikings played the Eagles. And obviously the Eagles were able to gut the Vikings defense, right? Yeah. A lot of production, a lot of plays. And so going into the game, and it's tough sometimes because you don't have a chance to really dive into it as deep as you'd like to, but I'll just kind of describe what that is and why it's like the in vogue defense, right? Guys like Brandon Staley are running it.
Well, and just for clarification purposes for the listeners, but like when you say, I mean, like a shell coverage, do you?
Yeah, it's all explained.
Like, does it matter what sort of defense you're running, or is that like the back?
That is the defense.
You're saying it is called just a shell coverage, so it's not like
because it all has to work in hand, right?
Yeah.
So your coverage has to work with your run fits in the run game. So obviously your coverage is for the pass game, your run fits is for the run game. And so usually, typically in most defenses, sound defenses, everyone's assigned to a gap, right? So let's just say between the guard center, there's someone there on each side. Between the guard tackle, there's someone assigned on each side. And then outside of them, right? Those are all gaps or potential spots where the running back in the offense is trying to run at, right?
Got to set the edge.
So you have to have a coverage that mirrors with that. So you're sound for pass coverage and you're sound for run defense. This is what's interesting about the shell coverage. So the shell coverage really essentially accomplishes two things. The first thing is, and if you look at the structure of it, you kind of get the cornerbacks who are playing somewhat off and the safeties kind of, and it literally creates like a shell to the defense, right? And the reason why they try to do that is they want to limit the big plays in the passing game. And so they're going to play softer zone coverages out of that to try to limit that. But the other intent is they want to disguise, and not the type of disguise where you saw, and just with the Minnesota Vikings fans, they'll relate with this, where Mike Zimmer would have like one safety down there at the line of scrimmage, and the snap of the ball, they run back and they switch and they go from 3 strong to 3 weak, or whatever verbiage you want to use for that. What the shell coverage does, and it primarily starts with the free safety or the weak side safety, is that guy's not trying to give you any tells. As a quarterback, you typically look at the safeties, the weak safety in particular, for movement, because a lot of your reads are based on if there's 2 high safeties or 1 high safety, depending on how those safeties move, right? And then from there, if it's 2 high, you might be working to this side of the field. If it's 1 high, you might be working to this side of the field, right?
Yep.
And then you've got your zone or man coverage beaters, things like that. And you've got your pure progressions where the coverage matters, but you're still looking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to your 5 eligible receivers. So this is why if you look at the construct of how quarterbacks and offenses operate, about a third, if not more than that, of their plays are differentiated between that 2 high or 1 high and how you go about reading it. And so if you're a defense and you can take that shell coverage and you can make it hard for the quarterback to discern
whether it's
what
too high
zone coverage is,
and
whether it's post high or split safety. And even if it's split safety, is it cover 4? Is it cover 2 on this side, cover 4 on this side? Most people call that cover 6. Is it cover 2? And with the way they move their cornerbacks up to play that bump coverage in cloud, they can disguise a lot of the things that they do, and they kind of hide it with the way their safeties actually don't move as compared to where they did move. So if you can slow down the process, and then this pass game for a guy like Jared Goff to discern what that coverage is for a second after the snap or half a second,
is
guess what? You only got 2.5, 3 seconds to throw the football. That's going to make him late in his progression and maybe late and off or inaccurate with the football. So that's kind of the design of it. And it was pretty neat to see. I mean, obviously, it's the beginning stages of Ed Donatell trying to implement that. And I think one of the things that when you saw Vic Fangio be so successful with it in Denver is you had Von Miller, you had DeMarcus Ware, you had Bradley Chubb, you had these edge rushers that could get after opposing quarterbacks while they're holding onto the football, trying to distinguish the coverage.
So when you take that extra beat of time you needed to progress, all of a sudden it's been shrunken in half because the quarterback, you got somebody coming after you in terms of
the pocket's collapsing. You've got a guy hanging on you. You have to move off of the spot, which is a big thing, right? Quarterbacks tend to be less accurate when you have to move off of your traditional spot where you're dropping. So that was one of the neater things, being able to kind of watch and break down a little bit. It really didn't come up quite as much in that particular game, but it's one of the things to kind of keep an eye on moving forward as Minnesota, who I think is going to be a playoff team, as they continue on this season. Harrison Smith was out. He'll eventually come back, but Josh Metellus played great in his place, getting his first start for the Vikings at the weak safety spot.
That is, I mean, this is why the Brady Quinn football show is the best.
Yeah, we talked about Hummers. And
your phone's ringing and you don't want to say it. Your phone's ringing and you don't want to say it. Is that right?
It's not. They're texting because apparently that's how everyone communicates. Maybe I should send them back a voice text.
You just send a voice text that says, I love chipmunks.
They're not calling. They're just texting.
We're going to wrap the show now, but we were hoping. I was really, really hoping that because I know you would have said it. I was really, really hoping that the
I love chipmunks. Is that what you're hoping for?
Yeah.
You want to tell the backstory behind this is if I got a call from the tow truck company, I was supposed to say I love chipmunks really loud to let them know to mute my mic. Yeah. So I could leave.
And then like ideally it was going to happen right at the end of the show. So it's like I love chipmunks, and then you go black. Like we cut the screen, and I'm like,
what is happening?
I guess there's some chipmunks in South Florida. I don't know. All right. Or maybe you had to go get a Hummer. Who knows? All right, we got to go. That'll do it for the Brady Quinn Football Show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Brady, as always, buddy, a pleasure. I hope you get that tire fixed. And
I hope we don't get in trouble for this show. This one feels like the most risque of all the shows we've done together.
I mean, we've done like 3 shows about the Buffalo Bills and their things they like to toss in the field. So I think we're probably fine.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
As long as you
buddy.
so.
Always a pleasure.
Right.
See you, man.
See you.